Okay. Good day, everyone. We're having a nice, lovely Labor Day. I wanted to make a follow-up video to the one I made last night. Now, again, this one's called The Age of Iron and Clay. Now, why is this important to comics? Now, if you didn't really watch the previous video, please do. I put a lot of time in it. I mean, I know it's 44 minutes, but it goes into great detail as to why we're here. But I really want to take time to dive into this. I just wanted to touch base on it for brevity's sake and just get the idea out there last night. But I'm going to dive into this now. Okay. So, the Age of Iron and Clay. Now, why is this relevant? Because of, in the Bible, there's a reference from King Nebuchadnezzar with Daniel. Daniel interprets his dream and translates it on behalf of the king, discussing a statue made of different metals and material. Now, as the dream interprets, the head, starting with gold, is the greatest, is the greater kingdom, and at the lesser kingdom is the foot, which is made of iron and clay, which is why we come to the Age of Iron and Clay within comics. We've already gone through the Age of Iron, and this is where we're at now. Things that come out of the Age of Iron of Clay are alliances that are half as strong from iron, and fragile like clay, and they're intermarried, meaning that they're attempting to bond, but they can't, because clay and iron are not the same. One is of dirt and the other one's of metal, right? That's why they can't bond. You can try, but they don't. Now, I want to say, I do want to preface this when I say that, people of color, with this, especially in relations to Comicsgate, and that people of color and people of like the LGBT community or anything like that, these people are welcome within the gates or within the community. For one, I actually I've talked to a gentleman. He's who is gay, and he's Comicsgate. And one of the reasons why he chose it is because within comic books, one of the first things that he had mentioned was LBGT pride. Now, the reason why, and I want to underline pride, is because the pride movement, now that is of clay. I'm going to put that under the clay because there's a lot of different ideologies that fall underneath there. Things such as like Marxism, socialism, racial politics, gender politics. These are all things that are of clay. In all honesty, it doesn't take much to just debunk these things, right? Number one, I mean, even just at the source, pride. Pride is an absolute killer of man. Having a pride in something that you had really almost no part in, or is honestly just ridiculous. I mean, such as like racial pride. You didn't choose the color of your skin, so why are you so proud about it, right? Now, the reason, my personal thing is that now in the Bible it says that man is made of two things. Now, only two things. I know a lot of people will try to say, oh, well, you're made of a mind, a body, and a soul. Well, no, you're made of dust and breath. That's what the Bible says that you're made out of. You're made of the dirt of the earth, and you're made of the breath of God, which comes with life. He breathes life. Another thing that's in breath is different kinds of gases, as well as liquid. When you breathe, you have moisture particles that come out, so you have that, right? Now that's part of that is part of human makeup, along with dirt, which is minerals, things. All that other stuff. So that's why I find that the Bible's, even scientifically correct. But as we've already seen throughout history, has proven that Marxism and socialism, they are doomed to fail. They will always be doomed to fail. They are absolutely ridiculous. Why anybody keeps trying to push that nonsense is beyond me, but people do. Racial politics and gender politics, things like feminism, you know. In modern day, in the modern day, feminism, especially in America and Canada, the Western, and in the Western world, feminism is unnecessary at this point. One of the things that you'll often hear is things like the gender wage gap. Well, of course, if you talk to anybody who knows anything about the actual truth of it all, that thing has been debunked 1,000 times over, gets debunked 1,000 times every day. Things that it doesn't take into consideration. Racial politics, that would be, like the immigration policies and all that kind of stuff. Whether it's white pride, black pride, Latino pride, any kinds of pride movements, any kind of racial victimhood movements, anything like that. That falls under that. That's all part of clay. Things like that can be easily destroyed. Things can be easily debunked. Over here in the iron, you have things like tradition. You have things like history, eldership, right? History, tradition, history. So history of like the comic book industry and everything that's going on with that. Traditions, kind of, I guess you can say, ties into history, but I guess, yeah, we could just we'll just say they're, combined tradition, history, whatever. Eldership, these are people who've come in, who've aged with the comic book industry, right? So, well, okay, you could say tradition is in traditional storytelling, and traditional artwork and stuff. Okay, but eldership comes with the elder statesmen within the industry, older people, Dave Gibbons, people like Alan Moore, and Neil Adams, Bill Sienkiewicz. I can never pronounce that guy's name, but anyway, he's one of the older individuals, right? So you have eldership, and then you also have new gen creators. Right? Now, these things don't bond. Clay is weaker than iron. They try to use the strength of the industry. This over here, the weak try to use the strong in order to maintain their footholds, but it doesn't last, and this is doomed to fail. Now, one of the reasons why is because, as the Bible says, that there was going to be a rock cut from the mountain, and it's going to whee. And here we go. Here's the industry. Here's the guy. He's got feet. That rock is heading right towards those feet. Why? Because clay is the weakest material. So when that rock hits that feet, this thing is going to go crumbling down, right? And that's what's bound to happen. Now, again, like I said in the previous video, we don't know when, we don't know how, but this is where we're going within this movement. And as I said, let me see, where's my remote? Where's it? Here we go. Okay. Comicsgate. And industry. So what do we have here now? So, you know, with Comicsgate, they do embrace diversity, sans politics, forces diversity at cost. Supports customer, professional relationship. And my handwriting is atrocious. I am trying to become a doctor eventually. That's actually the truth. I do want to become a doctor. I'm working very hard at getting things paid up and paid off and all of that. Honestly, encourages... Oops. I can spell, guys, don't worry. Encourages. The way my brain works, I'm several sentences ahead of wherever I'm at currently, and so I'm actually within my own head, I'm like 3 words down, so that's why I tend to miss things. Okay, so encourages blockchains, bigotry, and sexism. Comicsgate supports new creators regardless of fence side. Gate keeps whites, males, POC, and straights. Now that's going to seem like a really weird thing to say, right, for the industry. Gate keeps whites, males, POC, and straights, right? Gate keeps them. Tries to keep these people out. Now that's a bold claim. How could I say such a thing, right? Well, okay, so whites, males, there's been I don't know, I want to say Sin of Grace, Sana Amanat. So Sana Amanat had often she's made a couple posts talking about how the future is brown, and that it's that the industry will no longer be just a white person's club. Well, to be honest, the industry hasn't always been white people anyway. It was a lot of people within the industry that were Jewish. And you can say Jewish people are white, but that's not exactly true, because they're a very diverse group of people. I mean, they're genetics. I mean, they're mostly Middle Eastern. Gatekeeping white people. There's a lot of people, even creators who are white, like Mark Waid and such, who want to keep white people out of the industry. They're tired of white males supposedly dominating the industry. Straights, now, why do when it comes to that, there's a lot of trans and LBG who don't like straight people coming in and trying to dictate the rule of comics. And when it comes to POC, I recommend looking up the article with Christopher Priest when he discussed why he hadn't worked in the comic book industry for nearly 10 years. And it was because every time Marvel or DC would want someone to write a Cyborg comic or Steel or Black Panther, they'd come to him. And he knew exactly why it was, and it was because he was black, and that's why they wanted him. Because as we've seen over at Marvel, they don't hire people of color, right? They don't hire, I would say minority, but I feel like that's not even a true statement either, but just ethnic people in general. They don't really hire them as more like they cast them, right? So like America Chavez was a lesbian Latina. They hired a lesbian Latina. When it came to Black Panther, they hired a black man. When they for Riri Williams, they're bringing in a black woman who has no experience writing comic books at all. Like, they just pulled her off the street, almost quite literally pulled her off the street and put her right on the book. It seems like a dream come true, but the quality of the book is not going to be that great, and I'm promising you that. Now, I also say encourages blockchains, bigotry, and sexism. Now, as I've mentioned before, they do. Alterna Comics is currently on blast right now from a lot of people in the industry, and I've seen this firsthand. Engineers from Comixology have been going after them. Comic Book Pros are going after them for saying that the people who work for Alterna Comics are not allowed to use block bots and blockchains and block lists and stuff like that. They're not allowed to use those. That they have to maintain a professional relationship with the fans, and they have to maintain a professional stance. People within the industry, apparently, outside of the comics, they support that stuff. They support blocking people and all that instead of trying to engage people's minds. A very popular phrase that you'll hear is, if you don't like it, don't buy it. Well, that's why the industry is dying, is because people don't like it and they're not going to buy it. You're forcing people out. And now that's what and there we go, forcing diversity at a cost. When it comes to that, that's like killing someone and taking their clothes and then wearing their clothes and pretending to be them. It's things like that. Now, a good way to do something like that, if you were going to do something like that, now a good example of when it was done well would be like the death of Superman. When Superman died, there was a couple different people who took up the mantle. You had Steel and Superboy and Cyborg Superman and Eradicator. Steel is one of my favorite characters from DC of all time. I actually in the 90s, I liked Steel more than I liked Superman. And one of the reasons why is because the heart of his comic was family, and that was something I didn't really have growing up. And that's why, embracing, why Comicsgate is the better option, because they embrace diversity, stands the politics. You don't need to talk about, racial politics all the time with a character. It's okay to hit upon something maybe once or twice, but you want to do it very fairly. The industry isn't doing that. They had, Nighthawk was out fighting racist cops, and killing racist cops because they were out there, running around like the New Age Klan and murdering people. But if you honestly know FBI statistics, the likelihood isn't that high, or the numbers aren't even that high, but, we can go further into that later on. Anyways, people can cover it better than I can. Industry pros, you have people who, like I said, they, on Twitter and on Facebook and Instagram, they say all sorts of nasty things about, particularly with white people, this is really the popular target. Gabby Rivera, the writer from America Chavez, now she had a lot to say when it came to interracial relationships, like saying that they were an abomination, and that Latino people who are in interracial relationships with white people are just denying that white privilege exists, and that they're just doing it to get a leg up, and just really disgusting things. Bigotry. We had Eric Larson and Heather Antos posting anti-Christian memes on Easter weekend. You had I'm always gonna forget his name. He's done some stuff from Star Wars. He did the Black Bolt comic. His name is slipping my mind, but he posts a lot of anti-Christian stuff, like saying that he can't wait until Christian institutions are destroyed. We've also had industry people within the industry who, I can't remember who was that said that. I don't want to attribute anybody. I'll make sure I double check it, and I'll put it down in the comment section below. There was a pro who said that if she had a button that could kill every GOP politician, she would hit the button and then go take a nap. Meaning that she would be okay with just mass slaughter and then just go about her day like as if nothing ever happened. That kind of stuff is pretty disgusting. It's a lot of bigotry. Whereas in Comicsgate we have supports customer professional relationship. That's true. There's a lot of pros who not only do they interact with their fans, but then they also encourage people to interact with their fans. They also encourage people to maintain a professional relationship, supports new creators. There's tons of YouTube channels and Twitter pages that if you go to them and you say, hey, I got this comic book, I'm trying to get it funded, people will help you. I mean, they will. They'll share your stuff, and they'll do what they can to help you. Now this is why, but I mean, I know this sounds like, oh, well, you're just really just kind of trying to root for one side, and I know this really, and I know this all sounds like politics, but this is why a lot of this is important, is because the industry is the clay and iron, and Comicsgate is the rock sent to smash. We didn't make this rock, but I do feel that the rock is going to come in and it is going to smash up this industry. I think that it's a part of it, and that this is all an inevitability, and this side is going to be the one that loses. This is the side that's going to win. The other things that I want to make sure that I note too is that the industry has collusion points within major media. Something that a couple people don't know is that comicbook.com was just recently purchased by CBS, a partner within CW. They own half of CW. CW is also half owned by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers owns DC Comics. So for comicbook.com, this is basically almost like government-controlled media, right? That they're the ones that are controlling the stream and the flow of the information that comes through. I'm not exactly comfortable with that, and I like DC. Don't get me wrong, I like DC. DC, out of all the major companies that are around, they are probably my favorite. Especially out of the big two. Out of the three with Image, DC, and Marvel. DC's still my favorite, and if you go back down even more with IDW, DC's still my favorite. My second favorite, I would have to say, is Dark Horse. Those guys are really good. They do have some really good books. I will always really, really like Mike Mignola's work. I love Hellboy and BPRD and all of that. I still really dig all that stuff. Sorry, I know I'm going off on a tangent. But why... Oh, why does the industry have to do this? And that's because history is cyclical. Cyclical. And prophecies is cyclical. By the way, I know some people may say, okay, another really quick thing, and I had to learn this because the way I spelled it last night. Okay, so prophecy versus prophecy. This is an adjective. This is a verb. That's why last night I used the verb, because the verb, as I was giving to you the prophecy of what's going to happen, it's actively happening. This, I didn't just make a prediction. I was telling you that this is what's happening, that this is where it is. But prophecy is cyclical. The adjective of prophecy is cyclical, and that's a prediction of the future. Just as a prediction of the future, whereas prophecy, this is me as if I'm speaking as a prophet. I don't really claim to be a prophet of God, but I will say that I am trying to get back on good graces with God with a lot of repentance and trying to get back into continuance and trying to mind my behavior. And this right here, the age of iron and clay, and this particular prophecy, this was pressed upon me during a lot of my times in my studies, and I felt kind of pressed that this has a very defined nature and that it's very important. And I think for a lot of, if you're a Christian, if you're a real deal Christian, you have the eyes that see, the ears that hear. You will start to see this. You are going to see the similarities between the prophecy that Daniel had as well as the comic book industry. And I know that it may seem pretty silly, but we have to remember that, number one, that God is sovereign and has providence over everything, right? This is a quick important little lesson here that everybody should learn. I think that everybody should know this, as far as I'm concerned, that God will use good for good. God will use evil for good. For God has providence over both. Fix this up real quick. Use good. God will use good for good. God will use evil for good. God has providence over both. So whether the industry is used for good, such as teaching children and encouraging people to be heroic and do good deeds, or use the industry for evil and blasphemous things like preacher, or depicting bad guys as being the good, confusing good for evil and evil for good, God will use this all. And if it's God's choice to destroy things, it's well within his rights to do so. And this is why we're here at the age of iron and clay, because at this point the industry has made a shift from the greater good to evil. And this is where we're at. I hope this explains the age of iron and clay a little bit better than I did last night. If you have any questions, please post them down below, and I will do my best to make sure I answer them. If you have any more examples of things, please post them. I know I sound really tired. I'm very thirsty. I don't have a bottle of water near me. My throat is getting dry. But this is where we're at. And I really want people to understand this. Honestly, I wish pros, bigger names would pay attention to this and would fully understand this. And I would really like for people to understand this and really push this idea, because I want people to know that this is where we're at. And I know this to be true. Knowing the history of comics, I've done the research. I did the research even back in high school. I've even predicted this back in high school, that this was going to happen. I'm telling you, I mean, this was back in 2000 and like between 2001 2002. I was about a freshman. Yeah, I was a freshman in high school. So it was in 2001. I did a studies of the humanities on the comic book industry. I mean, I predicted that comic books in particular would become the biggest pop culture medium within a decade, and I was right, and I'm going to be right about this, that the comic book industry, it will be shattered. I'm not saying that they will be completely destroyed, and that there may be remnants of things, but I'm telling you, things are going to happen. Things are happening at Disney. You can tell that Disney is a glass tower, and it is going to be a matter of time before that tower breaks and shatters and everything is destroyed. DC, golly, those guys are not winning anything. IDW is fading fast. Image is losing people. I mean, the industry, it's either people can stay in the industry or they can get out at this point. And the people, whoever pulls out of the industry, whoever wants to leave this age or leave the construct, they need to get out now. It's time for them to get out as soon as possible, so that way they cannot be affected by this. But otherwise, they're going to get smashed just like everything else, and they will be destroyed, and they're going to be gone. And I think it would be good for everyone to take note of all the participants within the Clay Alliance and never hire them again, and make sure that these people don't get work, because they're trying to be just like the other movement. All right. And with that, I'm going to just sign off. Later, taters. This has been the Fandom Stranger channel.